Welcome again to a new episode of the KewCast. I'm John, joined again by my good pal Eddie. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
That's excellent.
John, this is like your 12th video this week.
I might put out 4 videos this week.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is nuts. Yeah. So I'm working with a editing firm now. They do pickleball content for people like Kyle Kazuda, Zane Navratil, turned me on to them.
Okay.
And that's why. So I was able to clear up that bottleneck because I spent a lot of time editing, which I love, but it also takes up a lot of time.
So how much time do you have back, like on an average video now?
Well, I don't know because I had to walk them through, my style.
Okay.
And give them some of the assets. They call them assets. I don't know what that means, but I think it's like the graphics and that sort of stuff. And they did a great job. So the last 2 videos I published, the JOOLA 4, the Perseus IV, as well as the Franklin C45, they did both of those. So they did an exceptional job. Thank you to them.
Well, more pickleball time for you then.
That's right. I'm going to sit down in front of the TV and watch some TV now.
But still, it's a good thing you don't have a day job anymore.
I do not have
no
a
way
day
you
job.
could do it.
No. But we've got a good show this week, Eddie. So we're going to jump into just a little bit of news. There's not a big news week, but we got a couple paddles we hit this week. This is the week of the large cell polypropylene honeycomb. And so we're going to look at the new Thrive coming out. There's a pre-order on Friday, and it's coming out in full on the 17th. So the Thrive Smoke and the Spartus Apex series. We got some gear of the week. We're looking at 2 bags today, 2 of the larger bags. So the 6-0 tour bag, they've updated it for 2025, and then the Bodhi has a new bag. And we're going to do some deep diving. This is going to be probably a recurring segment that I might just retitle Tales of the Ball Cannon. So I've got some new PBCoR data from the PBCoR rig set up here in the basement. Just kind of a continuation of last week.
Exciting.
A lot of people seem kind of interested in that. And then Q&A.
All right. Let's jump in.
You just got back with just a little bit more of how was our week. You just got back from the Pickler? Doing a little playing today?
Pickler, and it's always a good time. Pickler is they're nailing it, man.
Yeah.
Their customer service is great. Their courts are always in fantastic condition.
Mm-hmm.
You can go, they must be in 15 states by now.
They are. And the facility they just opened in Thornton is really nice.
Yeah.
Good management. Looks great. And I noticed that all of our peeps are migrating over there. Every time I go in, I see more and more.
You know, they all go to some place, and I go someplace different to get away from them. They just keep following me around.
Right. Yeah, but it's a good place. What were you doing there?
There was a group of, I guess, 8 of us, and we just kind of rotating around. Yeah, but you were there this morning, weren't you?
Robin. Yeah, I was there with Eric. And Eric and I are going to the Dallas PPA, Dallas Open. So we'll be there next week. Stop by and say hi if you're
Eric
in the
from
area.
Boulder, Eric?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Eric Flatland.
Okay.
Lefty Eric.
Lefty.
So we're going to compete in the men's 4-5.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you.
Should be fun. And then after that, the day after the tournament, so the following week, on Monday, I'm driving down to Austin and meet up with Zane Navratil. He lives in Austin, and got some other buddies there, including Brian Lim from Building Pickleball.
Oh, yeah, Brian. Good guy.
Yeah. Really good guy. Who else? Braden's going to be there. Like just by happenstance, Braden from Pickleball Effect will be there, so we're all going to kind of hang out. Should be a lot of fun.
Right on. Good crew.
Yes, sir. All right, let's jump into latest news and gear gossip. So they've updated, UPA-A has a new statement that updates the headhunting rule. And basically they've doubled the fines. So it was $2,500, and now if somebody gets penalized with the headhunting, it's $5,000, and then 2 times in 3 months, $10,000. Right, so they're increasing the fine.
10,000 on top of the 5,000.
Yes, yeah.
Ooh.
So that's
Pretty steep
$15K
for
for
pickleball.
two headhunting events within 3 months. So yeah. Also, something new they're doing is it can be reviewed post match, so it's not like on the referee in the heat of the moment to make that decision. They can kind of kick that can down the road and then look at the footage afterwards and then impose the fine, which I think is a better idea because it's hard in the moment for the referee. They're looking at the feet, right, primarily, and to see the wind up and, and try to interpret intent and that sort of thing. So I think that's a really good idea.
So do you know if the ref has to identify it at the moment as something that's going to need review following the match, or is it just kind of done by complaint of the players, or how is that instigated?
I don't know the specifics, but I hope that it's just, at the discretion of the PPA,
okay.
And the referee doesn't even have to identify it. But could be wrong. I think this is a better way to go about it than what they did before, which was very kind of subjective and heat of the moment sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I still think it's going to be difficult to enforce.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It'll be really interesting to see who, what, and when the first one will be.
Yeah. Can you think of any egregious headshots that were kind of clearly finable?
No.
Not even the Ben Johns against Kwong?
Does it have to make contact?
True. That's a good point. I think not. I think it's just, intent to
obviously that one came to mind, but if it doesn't make contact, it's still head hunting, I suppose. But
yeah. How about the Jay DeVilliers against James Ignatowicz?
Yeah,
that was pretty. Yeah,
we'll see. You want to take bets on who the first player is going to be?
Yeah, let's do. Let's get the viewer comments going. Who do you think will be the first to be fined?
Love it.
What do you think, Eddie?
I think getting comments is a great idea.
Okay. Well, do you have a vote on the player?
I'll give you my names offline.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to paddles of the week. So, I got X-rays for both of the paddles we looked at. So let's start with the Thrive Smoke. This is going to go on pre-order Friday of this week. So a day after this podcast will be published. And then the official launch is on the 17th, so March 17th. Yep, you got one there.
And you said these are both of our paddles today are wide cell?
Yes, exactly.
10 millimeter?
Yep.
I'm guessing?
Yep, 10 millimeter cells. So I'll show the X-ray and the B-roll. That's the look of it. So let's talk about the shape first before we get into the internals. Yeah, so it's basically the same shape as the Rush. So it's elongated, 16.5 by 7.5 inches. But the handle's a little longer than the Rush. It's a 5.6 inch handle rather than the 5.5 inch handle.
I love it.
Also, it's a 14.5 inch thickness. So yeah, it is a Gen 2 thermoform paddle, wide cell polypropylene. We're looking at the X-ray here. It looks like a internal cells of a PaddleTek, like those wide cells with edge foam and clearly thermoformed. Another interesting fact about it, I talked with Scott, the owner, today. It's a 5-layer face layup with 2 layers of unidirectional carbon fiber on either side and then a middle third layer of fiberglass. So fiberglass right in the middle of all 5 layers on both sides. So I'm surprised. I don't know how he got the weight down. It's like right at 8 ounces, like 8.1 ounces. So I don't know how he was able to put that many layers on the face and get the weight down.
It does not feel crazy heavy.
No.
Nor does it feel head heavy.
No, it doesn't.
I think the weight's actually
pretty
good for an elongated paddle.
Yeah.
Certainly better than what we've seen lately with Proton and Carbon and some of the others.
Yeah. So you played with yours today. I played with mine. We weren't playing together, so we have no idea what each other thinks about this.
Virtually.
Right. Let's tally up our scores.
Yes.
But it'd be interesting to find out.
Did you also have a 14.5?
No, I had the exact same one, right. There's only one shape and thickness in this right now. He eventually will make the hybrid shape, but right now it's elongated only. What do you think of it?
I think it's appropriately named.
The smoke?
The smoke in it, man. Power paddle for sure. Great spin, I thought. The sweet spot for an elongated, I thought, was very well rounded, literally. It's got a nice sort of roundish sweet spot, not elongated at all.
Right.
Not really anything bad to say about this paddle.
I was duly impressed. I hit around with it today. I played a couple games, and all the things you said, that it's definitely a power paddle. It's definitely got great spin, really good grip on this sucker. Yeah, the balance is good. Not too head heavy. I didn't feel the need to put any weight on it at all.
Same.
A pretty big sweet spot. You know how I classify it? It feels like what you would imagine, a PaddleTek Bantam, elongated at this thickness, would feel like if it was thermoformed. So it eliminates that dead spot at the top, broadens the sweet spot. And I don't know if it hits quite as hard as a PaddleTek, but I'd say it's close, probably mid-tier power level.
I'd say it does.
You think it hits as hard? Yeah, could be. But I love the way it played today. That's not a bad paddle at all.
I'm really happy with it. I'm loving all these wide cell paddles of late.
Yeah.
They seem to have a lot of forgiveness and a little bit of plushness that you wouldn't otherwise get.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, the feel of the ball coming off the face is really nice. It feels like it digs in a little bit and springs off. It's definitely a springy paddle, like that Bantam feel.
Oh, man, wait till we talk about the next paddle.
Right. $220 is going to be the price on launch. So, yeah.
Any weaknesses that you were able to detect?
This is the only shape right now. I'd love to try it in the hybrid, which they will eventually release. But otherwise, it's just a overall solid paddle.
Performance-wise, I would agree. My only knock would be on branding. From Thrive, I expect a little bit of crispness and some sophistication. This gray on black doesn't do it for me.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
It looks like...
And, 14.5 and kind of large font at the top there. I'm not thrilled about that, but I can't really argue with the performance.
All right. I like it.
Smoking it, baby.
Here we go. All right. Let's move on to the Spartus Apex series. So you played with the... What is that? The Odyssey, which is the hybrid shape.
Yep.
And I played with the Orion, which is the elongated shape. Both have the same technology. Both are budget paddles. I think they're running a sale right now, and you can get them for like $70, something crazy, which is $80. Sorry,
that's impressive.
$79.99. For this level of quality, it's great. Now, these are definitely soft paddles. And they're Gen 1. They're not thermoform. They're wide cell. Large cell polypropylene, 10 millimeters again. They have the phalanx system, which we'll look at the X-ray in a second. You can see it quite clearly. But if you're a control player, you like a lot of spin. You don't like too much power, but you love that soft Gen 1 feel. I mean, these are really good options. I mean, first of all, the handle is fully molded. For $80, I mean, come on. Everybody else who's still using squishy handle pallets.
Oh, yeah, that does feel good.
Get on board, because if you can put it in an $80 paddle, it means it's just not expensive to do it. So let's go, everybody. Let's switch over to fully molded polyurethane handles. There are the two shapes here. So the Orion, which is their elongated, has a 5.87-inch handle. So really good for twoies on this. And the Odyssey is 6.25 inches by 7.75 inches and a 5.35-inch handle. So really similar to all the other hybrid shapes with the arrow curve top. There's a CFC layup, so carbon fiber, fiberglass, carbon fiber. Again, fully molded handle. And they even listed the PBCoR on the website, which surprised me. It was so high. It's 0.40. I thought it'd definitely be in the threes. I mean, this feels like slightly above a Lux to me, in terms of...
I wouldn't necessarily put it quite that far in the control.
As I was saying that, I was
spectrum.
That's a stretch. So I'd put it, above a Lux, but definitely not like at a all-court level.
No.
Yeah. I think the fiberglass does, together with the wide cell, gives it a little bit of spring, but it felt very soft and plush and control-oriented to me.
I would say that it's kind of sneaking up on all court. I've played a lot with the 11.624 all court lately, in that what's their sort of middle shape, the Pegasus.
That's the wide body.
In all court, yeah.
Okay.
And that one's certainly in the all court area. This is not far from that in power.
Okay.
So just shy of all court is where I would put this, at least this shape.
Well, looking at the X-ray, definitely looks again like a PaddleTek, especially with the lack of edge foam and these. It looks like they use the ball bearings, which I think is just actually the gel. And they called it, the failing system before was like a harder plastic thing in the handle and the Spartus Olympus. Now it looks like they're filling the cells with some kind of gel, similar to what they're doing, what PaddleTek is doing with the ALWC, minus the ball bearings. So I think it's just gel. And you can see that they also added at 9 and then 3 o'clock, just like PaddleTek, but also in the handle, just at the neck. So interesting to see the x-rays. Heck, for $80, great deal. You're not going to get a lot of power with these, but they play great, spin great, solid performers.
Yeah, I thought it was very well balanced. My only gripe is the sharpness of this edge guard. I don't know if it's like that on yours, but as I'm going for 2Es, that sort of harsh angle right there is it's not the most comfortable.
Now that you mention it, yeah, it is a little bit of a sharper angle. I didn't notice it on this because the handle's so long, but on that hybrid.
Yeah. But sweet spot on this is excellent.
Yeah.
And control all day. It's got an interesting feel. It's you can feel the ball being pocketed by the paddle. Mm-hmm. And with power paddles, you feel that springiness sort of being rebounded back into the ball. But in this case, that pocketing just creates that much more control. You sort of feel that on the face, and it kind of shoots right where you want it to go.
Yeah. To me, the sweet spot wasn't like oversized. I'd say it's, maybe a little less than a thermoform paddle, but not bad. Definitely better than a PaddleTek. I shouldn't say definitely. Close to a PaddleTek, but a little better. I think it's just, I guess, adding weight here and there, and I just couldn't get it kind of dialed in. I think I'm just used to, the edge foam and the enhancements in that regard rather than just weight. But I think the failing system, particularly in the neck, does the paddle well because it drops the balance point. It stiffens up the neck a bit so you don't get that neck flex like you do on Gen 1 paddles, So I think it plays great.
I can't think of a better sub-$90 control paddle.
Yeah. It gives even the Vatic Prism Flash a run for its money, even though the Vatic Prism Flash is not Gen 1. It's Gen 1.5, which is basically thermoformed with less heat, right? Good stuff.
Yeah, you should play with this hybrid shape for a while and see if the sweet spot is any different for you.
Okay, maybe that's a better sweet spot. It is a little wider than the elongated, so it'll have a wider sweet spot as well. Mm-hmm. All right.
It's an interesting shirt you got there.
Yeah. Rocking my skateboard
from
shirts.
Your boarding days.
Right on. All right, let's move on to gear of the week. I've been wanting to talk about a couple of bags for a good while now. So we're going to talk about the 6.0 Tour bag, which is a massive bag, and they've updated the bag this year for 2025. So they've enhanced some areas and fixed some issues that the older bag had. And also, go ahead.
I was going to say, what are some things that you look for in a bag that you would say, yeah, that's something I have to have?
Yeah, zippers. Yeah, surprisingly. Well, my biggest pet peeve with the bag is that the zipper gets locked up and you just can't open one of the compartments at the top. And low quality zippers, you can't stand them. I'm just like, guys, just invest a little bit more in quality zippers. How about you?
Well, for me, it's shoe storage, particularly being in Colorado where there's salt and snow and mud and everywhere. You got to carry your pickleball shoes. You can't just wear them usually into a club, at least in the wintertime. And so there's a lot of bags out there where kind of shoe storage is either non-existent or it's an afterthought. Mm-hmm. And once you get your shoes in there, there's really no room for anything else. So it's sort of that upfront consideration of how to store those shoes.
Interesting. All right. We can chat about that in a sec. And the other bag is the Bodhi. The Bodhi that makes originally the grips, and now it's all kinds of accessories. Now he has a bag in the lineup.
All right.
Let's jump into the 6.0 bag first. There's no way to even get this massive bag in a single screen. But it is probably one of the largest bags out there. So if you like a touring bag that you can put every paddle in your inventory in. And
John, you're a big dude, and that bag looks huge.
It looks gigantic because it is gigantic. It's got pretty much a pocket for everything. They've updated the zippers. These are now the YKK zippers, which are
The only zipper that there
the
should
only,
be.
the only zipper there should be. Exactly. They have a shoe compartment. My biggest pet peeve with the first bag was that the top strap, you kind of hold it, they weren't reinforced, the stitching, and almost everybody I know, the top strap came off. It lost its stitching. So they've reinforced that. I haven't used it enough to know if it's solid, but I don't know. No, I'll trust them that they did reinforce it. And yeah, it's just one of these bags where if you travel heavy and you got a lot of stuff and you know, all of that space is good. One pet peeve is that the internal compartment is still pretty dark gray. So, you know, if you're digging around for stuff in low light, it's just hard to see. And as large as this bag is, even in bright light, there's going to be shadows down there and it's hard to see. I do like the fact that both of the side compartments are thermal, so you can put food in either one. Big shoe compartment, and yeah, just a lot of stuff to play around with. I think these are also new. That I don't think the old one had clips that you can hang it on the fence
That
with.
is absolutely essential.
It's essential, right? So they've updated a lot of stuff. $150 for this bag, which is, you know, kind of mid-tier price for lower mid-tier price for bags. So for that price, I think this is a solid choice. Oh, one advantage this has over the Bodhi are the color options. So they've got the black, they've got a gray, and they've got a ruby red, which is really pretty. And that ruby red is going to be a popular bag for sure. I think this top compartment is a different configuration. Also, I like how they're doing this. I forget how the other one was, but it was just more difficult to get into. But this one just.
I like the organization on the bottom of the lid.
Oh yeah, so you got lead tape and all kinds of, you know, overwraps and all kinds of stuff. So good stuff from 6.0, and for $150, I think it's a good buy. Do you have any initial thoughts on this, Eddie?
It's pretty sleek looking. I like I got to hand it to a company that will actually design their own bags, have it manufactured versus just, you know, putting their brand on, you know, some no-name company. And it's just the thought that goes into something that's specific for pickleball.
Yeah.
It's worth the effort.
Yeah.
And it shows.
For sure. All right, let's move on to the Bodhi bag. So another larger bag, similar price point, $140. And a lot of similarities between these two in terms of the construction. So they're both PU leather, YKK zippers on this as well. And overall, this is a little bit smaller, but I'd still classify this as a large bag. The dimensions of this are 22 inches by 16 inches by 9 inches versus the 6.0, which is 25 by 16 by 12. So you're getting quite a bit more space in the 6.0. I'm pretty sure they say that the 6.0 bag you can use as a carry-on. I think if you stuff it fully, you might get flagged for that and have to put it as a checked bag. Regardless, both fairly large bags. I've been enjoying this bag. I like how they did the back of it. So it's a duffel, a transformer duffel. So you can, for the most part, when I'm carrying it around to the gym, to the pickleball courts, I don't like to throw it on my back necessarily. I just carry it as a duffel. I have other stuff, camera stuff I'm using as a backpack. But you can open this up and it transforms really quickly into a backpack as well. So you got the two straps in here and the hooks for the fence, etc. And the straps are comfortable, just as any backpack like this should be. And yeah, I think it's just a smart design. Doesn't have as many compartments as the 6.0. You know, they got one big mesh pouch here, but they've got a bunch along the sides. We've got one big one over here, and then 3 mesh pouches on this side. So there's enough organization, and you got 4 pockets total, 2 on each side. And I've been toting around this Bodhi bag and kind of taken a liking to it, you know, for you know, when I need to go to the court and take 10 paddles, you know, my
a light day for you.
Forward bag, formerly kitchen bag, isn't quite big enough for that. So I may take this to Dallas as one of my options. We'll see.
I tell you, having that contrasting color on the inside really makes a huge difference.
Thank you for reminding me about that. That's one of the key aspects of this that I do prefer over the 6.0 bag. It's a really light,
Absolutely.
bright internal color, and it's really easy to see.
And I love the rubberized pull tabs on those zippers too. Those are
Yeah,
I use those all the time.
that's to me that's critical because that's my only issue with the Forward, formerly Kitchen bag, is that they have amazing zippers, or YKK zippers, but they have these little like rubber things that you want to grab onto and pull like these, but they break. So you have to hold it by the metal if you don't want to break off those rubber things, right? And these, it's a paracord with a rubberized texture, so these are not going to
Little
break.
details, man, they make all the difference.
They make all the difference. So yeah, well done, Bodhi. These are both good bags. I'd say that if you want a gigantic bag, go with the 6.0. If you want a large bag but a little more reasonable and the ability to transform it into a true duffel without the straps hanging around, then this is the bag.
Does that have the fence hangers?
Yep, fence hangers right in here.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Very good.
Bodhi's killing it, man. He just keeps knocking it out of the park with all of his.
Still working my
Pickleball
way through my
accessories.
200 pack of Bodhi grips.
I just got a new package from Bodhi, and I think I got a new thing of grips. I go through them so fast now with all the reviews we're doing, and taking them on, taking them off, and yeah.
Man, between grips and tungsten or lead weight, it's like
Yeah.
it's like a factory at my house, just constantly redoing grips.
Right. All right. Let's move on, Eddie, to Tales from the Ball
Sure
Cannon.
thing.
All right. I'd like to refresh everybody's memory from last week. Oh, where's my charts? Shoot. Do you see the
Yep.
radar chart or the scatter plots? Let me switch over to.
Yep.
All right. So if you recall from last week, Eddie, I showed a chart from my engineer friend who is putting together in parallel with me his PBCoR rig in his basement, and he got some initial results, which are really cool to look at. And basically what it shows is inbound velocity versus outbound velocity for 5 paddles. And it shows that at low speeds at 20 miles per hour, they all hit about the same in terms of their firepower. And then as you get at higher speeds, they start to separate in terms of which have a steeper curve, which return more energy, and which don't. And you can kind of see like two pretty clear curves here for the Gen 2 paddles versus control paddles. So paddles with more power versus less power. And as we mentioned last week, it's not an exponential curve like we kind of thought, like what it feels like on the court, like the more juice you put into it, the more power you get. It actually is a linear curve that goes up, and then it peaks, and then it drops. It's an upside down U, right? And it happens for both power paddles and control paddles. And that peak is around 50 miles an hour for more powerful paddles and about 35 miles an hour for control paddles. Now, I mentioned also last week that I was getting some preliminary results, and they were going as expected until I had one anomaly, and that was the PaddleTek Bantam ESQ-C. So first I looked at the gearbox ProPower elongated, and it got this was a used paddle even, and it got a PBCoR on my rig of 0.442, which this is going to be a little lower than what USAP is getting. Their limit right now is 0.44. Next year it'll be 0.43. That's what the stamps say, 0.43 PBCoR certified. Mine's going to be a little lower because I'm shooting it with balls with holes, and I'm using different miles per hour. There's is a ball without holes that is pressurized, so it shoots off faster. Regardless, so the point here is you can't take that 0.442 is exactly what USAP is going to get, or for that matter, what PPL is going to get, UPA-A. They're using a slightly different methodology too. So I'm shooting it at 50 miles an hour. I got 0.442 for the gearbox ProPower elongated. I tested the Perseus 3, so the original Gen 3 that was banned right after launch. I got even higher. I got 0.45. I tested the Selkirk Lux. That got really low, 0.33. I tested the Rhombus Ripple. That got really high, like 0.45. And I tested the fifth. Yeah, the fifth one I tested was the PaddleTek Bantam ESQ-C 12.7, which is a very poppy, powerful paddle. More pop than power, but still the firepower combined is really high. So I was expecting definitely over 4, probably close to like the gearbox, right? That's kind of where it lines up on my power and pop charts, that I've been using radar guns to measure. But that one came in much lower than expected. I don't have the number in front of me, but it was in like the mid 3s. It was like 0.36, I think is what it ended up being. And I was like, how could that be? This is definitely a power paddle, and it falls kind of, right in between control paddles and power paddles from my small sample size so far. So what I wanted to do is plot it the same as the chart we looked at last week against a power paddle. So this scatter plot we're looking at here is the JOOLA Perseus IV, which is very powerful, compared to the PaddleTek Bantam ESQ-C 12.7. So very interesting results here, and it's something that Keith's scatter plot didn't pick up on because he didn't have these paddles, right? He didn't have something as powerful as the JOOLA Gen 3 in his, and he didn't have the PaddleTek in his either. So what Keith showed is that, everything starts at about the same point at 20 miles an hour, and then you get the separation, 2 lines basically. What this chart is showing with the PaddleTek is really interesting to me because it's showing that in the lower range, above 20 miles an hour, but below 50 miles an hour, you get a much steeper trajectory for the PaddleTek than even the JOOLA Gen 3. So it picks up speed a lot as you're in the, 30 miles an hour to 50? Is that what that range is? Can't quite see the numbers down
30
there.
to 50,
yeah.
Right?
So in the 30 to 50 mile an hour range, you get a steep trajectory. So the more power you put, the more velocity you put into it, it's actually getting above the JOOLA Gen 3.
Steeper and higher overall.
Steeper and higher,
speed.
exactly.
Yep.
But then it peaks. What's that number, Eddie?
At about 45, 46.
Yep, 45, 46, and then it drops off. That's the top of that bell curve at 45, 46 miles an hour, and then it drops off. Now, if you look at the JOOLA Perseus 3, the Gen 3, you get a different curve. So it starts lower, continues lower. It's got a little bit of a steeper trajectory, but eventually it catches up right around, like 47.
Right around 46, 47.
46, 47, and then it continues going and peaks, right around 50?
It peaks at about 55 miles per hour.
Yep, and then it follows the same suit and drops.
But not quite as steep a drop.
Now, this is still preliminary data. I'd love to get 100 more hits on each of these. I don't like that there's so much spread, but regardless, the trend is clear either way.
That's really interesting.
So yeah, what we're seeing here is that I think we could safely say that firing a cannon at a ball at 50 miles an hour, which is what PPL does for UPA-A, or 60 miles an hour, which is what Elements Space and Defense does for USAP. It gives you great information for both, but it's definitely in the power range of speeds. And we talked about this last time too. You have to consider that the ball is hitting the paddle at 50 miles an hour and energy is being returned at, let's say, 12 miles an hour. So you add those two together, and overall, it's like hitting a serve at 62 miles an hour or hitting anything at, inbound, outbound. The outbound speed is what's mattering here. So it's rare that we actually get up that many miles per hour on the court. That's a really, really hard serve or an overhead smash. And most of the time, we're dealing with less velocity, and most of the time we're not standing at the baseline when we're playing pickleball. Everybody wants to get to the kitchen, and speed ups at the kitchen can be 30 to 40 miles an hour and be deadly because you only have 14 feet between those two kitchen lines to react to that ball. So what this is showing is that the impression that the ESQ-C is very powerful is not wrong. It is, and it's not that the PBCoR data is wrong either for having, I don't think, maybe swing weight comes into this, and maybe there's a way to, maybe swing weights should be calculated differently in the formula. That's still up in the air. Right. But just give it, by the way, this isn't PBCoR, the results of the scatter plot. It's simply raw inbound versus outbound. So the PBCoR is going to be slightly different because of all the other factors factored into the equation. But what it's showing is that the PaddleTek, as you kind of expect, is poppier. 30 to 45 mile an hour range. It's actually above the powerful paddle of the JOOLA Gen 3, but then it drops off more quickly at a sooner point, and these higher speeds, and you can kind of feel it. You can get good serves with the PaddleTek ESQ-C, but it's not like when you wind up like what you get with the 3S. At that point, you can kind of feel that drop off for the thinner, poppier paddles. You know what I mean? So kind of cool. I mean, I love this, and I think that this is going to be useful information moving forward for all paddles, like maybe coming up with kind of standardized curves to show, okay, this is a poppy paddle. It peaks earlier than power paddles.
This is really interesting to me because there's so many just practical takeaways for a player who really knows their game. Right. If their game is at the kitchen line, beating balls back versus those huge drives.
Yeah.
An ESQ-C might be a great paddle for them, a great match because it optimizes that part of the game up until a certain point. Whereas a big, heavy baseline hitter, it's not going to do as much for them. This is really interesting.
It's super interesting. It's also cool that like at 20 miles per hour, they all hit the same regardless, because you kind of have this impression of like poppy paddles during dinks are hard to control. And not the case. Most dinks are going to be under 20 miles an hour, but it's the kind of a little bit of a speed up once you get over 20 miles an hour and you're swinging at the ball. That collision is going to be more around that 30 miles an hour range here. So that's going to be easier to pop up with a poppy paddle like the 12.7 ESQ-C. So I think this is just fascinating that we're fleshing this out right now and kind of figuring out, what does it mean that a paddle is more poppy than powerful? We all feel it on the court, but now we're actually seeing it with the data.
Very cool. Now you just need to get cracking on the other 195 paddles.
No problem. It only took me like 6 hours for each paddle.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But the process is becoming more streamlined as I'm learning how to do it. You know what I mean?
Once you figure it out, you can outsource it.
We'll see. So good stuff.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's enough.
Any other takeaways from your data gathering?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Eddie, for the reminder. So another big question was, especially when I first started thinking about this, I looked at the free swinging clamp that USAP was using late last year. I was like, why are they doing that? It makes no sense. Like clearly that if you have a firm grip, the ball's going to bounce off with more velocity than if you have a loose grip. That's what it feels like on the court. And then we've talked about this a few times already on the podcast. So Brian Fitzpatrick and I kind of were discussing this, and he's like, I don't think that's the case. I think it doesn't matter if the paddle's loose or clamped. So we had tested it a little bit with low velocity and got about the same. And then I was like, well, if you look at the scatter plots here, low velocity, they all kind of converge for PBCoR anyway, so maybe they do start separating. So I tested it. So the clamp I have is free swinging, and you can stick a pin in it and lock it. So I used the Gearbox Pro Power Elongated. I first did free swinging, then I put the pin in, locked it, and shot it again, and I compared the two. So at the same spot, 4 inches down from the top of the paddle, so we're using the same spot on the paddle, same miles per hour, 50 miles per hour. Free swinging handle, PBCoR of 0.442. Locked handle, PBCoR of 0.441.
Okay.
It's like exactly the same. I could not believe it. Even like watching it, I was like, that's coming off faster with the locked handle. It looks more violent because the whole thing's kind of shaking, and I'm just like, there's no way that's not coming off faster. Sure enough, it's just exactly the same. And something that concerned me and why I did this test is because when I shoot at 240 frames per second, high-speed camera, and watch the impact collision, the air coming out of the cannon starts to push the paddle back about half a centimeter before the ball hits it. So the paddle's actually retreating a little bit as the ball's hitting it. And I was like, oh, crap, that's going to totally screw up my PBCoR results. It doesn't. It's exactly the same, even with the paddle moving back a little bit and then, being free to swing as clamping the paddle super tight. It's nuts to me. I don't know how this is possible.
You got to put in some of that slow-mo into this video.
Yeah, I'll look it up. I've got a bunch on my phone's getting filled up with slow-mo. I'm just using the iPhone right now. But
that's so counterintuitive.
It's very counterintuitive. It reminds me, like on Instagram, how if you hover over something for too long, they'll just flood you with those. So like pet videos I'm constantly having a thought that's really cute, but I'm gonna scroll right past it, right? So one of the things they realize that I love watching are like these counterintuitive physics videos, So now, and I can't not hover over there over those videos, and it makes sense because I love this kind of stuff.
God, you're a nerd.
All right, so let's move on, Eddie. Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A.
You pulled a couple of questions.
I did. Let me get those going here. Some were from our last podcast. Others were from your YOLA video. And actually, there were a couple of questions. I won't go through each of them, but they were along the theme of, okay, here we go again with YOLA.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Fool me once, you got me.
Right.
Not again. I'm not ready to put my money down on this YOLA. I think it plays great. Mm-hmm. I said last week, I think it's the best YOLA paddle that's ever been created. And thank God for all the controversy of decertification, because we might not have this paddle otherwise. I think it's fantastic, but I'm not ready to put my money down yet. Are you ready to put your money down on it?
Yeah, I mentioned that. Well, not yes that I would, but I understand your question, and I mentioned that in the review. At the end, I was like, would I spend my own money on this?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a tough question, because there are other paddles that are $100 cheaper that have similar performance. Now, they don't have the exact same technology as the YOLA, but I'm not going off my 11624 Vapor Power as my main anytime soon, even though I think the new YOLA Perseus IVs are great. But that's one thing. The other thing is, do we trust that they won't break?
Mm-hmm.
That's
I think
the
that's
big
the
piece
crux
of the
question.
puzzle, right? So I do think that the YOLA is very, very conscious now and really putting in a lot of effort to make sure the QC is there, that their paddles won't break. Does this mean that they won't? No. I'm waiting to judge until they do hit the mass market and we see the hundreds and thousands of paddles out there in the wild, and whether or not they're going to start breaking in and then breaking. I suspect that they'll be similar to the 3S models, which did not break nearly as easily as the mods or the Gen 3s before them. Like I know that there have been reports of 3Ss breaking, but all the people I know that have them, they're not broken, and they've been playing with them for months. The reason I say that is because they're not compressing the cores anymore, the polypropylene cores. That was the main issue with the mods and the Gen 3s, why they broke, because they had pre-compressed cores. Now, I actually talked with YOLA at the event and various people at YOLA, and they were like, yeah, I mean, it's not like we were trying to pull one over on people and putting out paddles that were knowingly going to break, because we had been using compressed cores since the first Perseus and Scorpius. The Gen 2 YOLA paddles all had compressed cores. And yes, some of them broke similar to other thermoform paddles, but it was not like YOLA has the worst core crushing issue of anybody until the Gen 3 came out and the mod after that. And it was just like, holy cow, these things break, as soon as you hit them. And something about the Gen 3 technology, the propulsion core amplified the damage on that compressed polypropylene and caused the polypropylene core to break and just lose its integrity, right? So long-winded answer, but I think, I'm going to wait before I have any confidence. And I think, and YOLA is aware that they have to win back the general public's confidence on this.
Yeah, and it's not so much value for money as it is what I spend going to be hanging around for a while.
Well, you don't have $280 just laying around.
I do not.
It's not cheap. These paddles these days, holy cow.
This one's actually very timely because we're seeing a brand new 6.0 bag. When are we going to start seeing some 6.0 paddles?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any behind the scenes scoop on when we might start seeing some new product from 6.0?
Yeah. So I have talked with Dale, not super recently, but a few weeks ago. And he does have things on the horizon. I don't know exactly when they're going to hit, but he's got big plans. He shared some of those plans with me, but I can't talk about them. They're
but it's
trade
on the horizon.
Secrets. But yeah, they're on the horizon, and they are. I can't say that it's not, just like adding, a new skin to the Ruby or something like that, or putting Kevlar on the on the double black diamond or something like that. It's a fundamental change in what he was telling me. So I don't know if it'll will materialize, but I do know that he's working on it.
All right. A question from Porter Christensen. How does the JOOLA Pro 4 compare to the Power Vapor? And would you consider switching to it? How drastic is the pop and power difference? And how does the feel differ between them and the sweet spot? So basically, your thoughts on the
comparison,
differences.
right? Yeah. Well, just like right at the bat. So in terms of firepower, the JOOLA Perseus IV is more powerful than the 11624.
For sure.
Power, all their varieties of the power. I would put I have put the 11624 Power Series low in the power paddle category. And now that the Gearbox Pro Power Elongated and the Mod TA15 are being sunset starting July 1st, so we can kind of count those out right now. If we do count those out, then the new Perseus 4 and soon to be the Scorpius and the other shapes will be top tier power at the top of that, right? Together with the PaddleTek Bantams and the 3S's. So if we're looking now from the bottom of the power scale for the 11624s to the top so if you want the maximum power you can get right now that's not going to be sunset in July, then the Pro 4 is your choice.
In your mind, it's JOOLA, PaddleTek, Power Vapor.
Yes.
As far as the power scale goes.
And then the new Gearbox Ultimate Power and the Ultimates are right up there at the top with the JOOLA 4s. They do break in. So after break in of the gearboxes, they're right up there, maybe even slightly above. Okay.
Okay.
And
what
then
about feel?
All the other stuff, feel on the new Perseus 4 is great. I love the feel of it. Like the vibration damping is excellent. It's got a good sweet spot. It's got good dwell time. And I would say the 11624 Vapor that I'm playing with is stiffer than the Perseus 4. Not quite as much dwell time on the 11624. And a little bit more vibrations, right? So, that's also a subjective thing. Some people like to feel closer to their paddle and the ball response to have a little bit more vibration. I tend to like the more dampened paddles. Not to say that the 11624 is a bad paddle. It's obviously not. It's still my main, and I'm super used to it now. Sweet spot, I would give the advantage to the Vapor shape of the 11624 over the Perseus shape of... But I think I would have to say that, if I got to play with the Scorpius 4 a little bit in Vegas, and it had
that'll be interesting.
Really big sweet spot. I can't say whether or not it's as big as the Vapor or the Pegasus, but being a little bit wider in the Vapor shape, it's got a wider sweet spot.
John, it sounds like you might be close to a new main.
No, I don't think I'm going to main the Perseus or the Scorpius. I'm a hybrid person. Again, I've kind of come back to the hybrid shape, and I don't want to move off of it. And the Vapor is just an excellent paddle. So nothing wrong with that.
That's the one for Texas.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be my main.
What's Eric playing with?
He's still got the Perseus 3S.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is he can play with because it's a PPA event. It's UPA-A only approved. But yeah, I mean, if you look at, I've got a line chart here, going most powerful to least within the power category. So most, I don't have the gearbox on here, but it'd be gearbox, PaddleTek, gearbox, Perseus 4, PaddleTek Bantam series, Perseus 3S, kind of all together. It's really subtle differences between those in terms of firepower. And then you got the Franklin C45 is up there, Carbon True Foam, and the 11624, all kind of toward, I'd put the Franklin C45 kind of in the middle of the power category at this point, especially after you weight it up. And then the Carbon True Foam's just under that, and then the 11624 at the bottom of that list.
Okay. And our final question from It's Decap. Would you pay for a JOOLA Pro 4 or just buy a used 3S? is the price difference worth the upgrade?
Yeah, lots of interest in that Pro 4.
Yeah.
I guess I suppose on how much the used 3S is going to be. If it's $10, go for the 3S. It also depends on what you like in the feel of a paddle. So I would say that the firepower is too close to say one is more powerful than the other between the 4 and the 3S. But the 3S is a much stiffer feeling paddle, a little smaller sweet spot. There's just more vibrations in it. And if you love that softer, more dwell time, dampened feel, then I think it's worth the extra, what is it, $40 difference? Yeah, now that they've dropped the price of the 3Ss, by the way, now that the 4 is out. So it's a $40 difference. And in my mind, if you're paying, over $200 than $40 for something you like objectively better, is okay to spin. If you don't like the plusher feel, then definitely go for the 3S, and you can get them new for $40 less.
I'm still maining the pickleball apes, and I'm doing that because I just love the feel of the ball striking with that paddle. And the JOOLA 4 it's kind of got that going for it, right?
Yeah.
That little bit of dwell time, the deep throatedness, that little bit of pocketing feel that it's just so special.
Which shape of the apes are you playing?
The V.
The V. Okay. Ah, nice.
Yep.
I didn't realize you're still maining that.
It's got a lot of use at this point.
Yeah,
Probably
really.
100 hours into
Yeah.
it.
Well, how's the break-in? I mean, we talked about the break-in on the apes a lot on this, and then I noticed it on my review also, and my impression is that the apes breaks in. It does get a little bit more powerful, but it's not so much the power changing as it is the feel and the dwell time.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you compare the firepower level of your broken-in apes now?
It's very high on all court.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So just under the 11,624 powers.
Yeah, I've got a good bit of weight on it, so with that, maybe even sort of riding that line over into power, but it's not a power paddle by any means.
Okay. Good stuff, Eddie.
Yep. And that's it for our Q&A.
And that's it for the show also. Pretty short show, but that's okay. We don't have to go over an hour on every show.
We're saving our good stuff for next week. Number 50.
Number 50, yeah. We got to have a little celebration. I'll break out a bottle of wine. How about that?
Wine and a big old cake.
Wine and sweet. How about wine and cheese? I'll bring a cake
How
for
about
you
coffee and cake? We'll do that.
There we go. All right, good sir. Talk to you soon.
All right, John. Thank you.
Bye-bye.